The lives of at least 4 people claimed by last weekend's heat. It's not just hikers who face danger. Who goes looking when there's trouble in the desert? And how can you stay safe in record temperatures? This is Metro Week. The desert, a place so many of us love. But this beautiful and unforgiving place reached a peak last weekend. The record heat took at least 4 lives and sent many others to area emergency rooms, prompting the Pima County Sheriff to plead for common sense.
We're asking the public to step down and give up the hiking, give up the exercise. I don't want them out there. I know we've been telling them, hey, if you're gonna do this, do it before 10 a.m. I'm telling them this week, till these temps really subside, stay home. Get your exercise in your living room. Go to a gym. Do any number of things, but don't get outside.
The sheriff spent Sunday with crews responding to 3 calls for troubled hikers in the mountains. Those led to rescues and 2 deaths. He pleaded with the public to avoid the heat as his crews continued to brave it in search of a hiker who went missing Sunday. That man's body was found Tuesday morning, another victim of the heat. As crews searched, the sheriff described the scenario.
That involved 3 individuals here at a conference at Ventana Canyon. All 3 are German citizens. They flew in Saturday night. Yesterday, early Sunday morning, they decided to go hiking up this trail here. Some 5.4 miles of trailhead. One decides they need help, and he starts down. That is a 34-year-old male who is still missing. The second one starts down, makes a phone call to his friend at the resort. That individual gets help through the hotel clerks, call 911, we respond. We find that individual halfway up the trailhead. He tells us that the third individual is at the top of the trailhead and needs help. We get to that individual, he has succumbed to his heat exhaustion and passed as well. And all because they made poor choices. All of this is 100% avoidable.
One of Sunday's heat-related deaths was a woman who died walking the Loop, a multi-use trail along metro area riverbeds.
So it's not everything happens in the mountains out in the middle of the desert. This was in the middle of the city. We had a 50-year-old woman taking a walk about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and she passes from heat exposure.
Resources dedicated to the search this week ranged from local volunteers to federal agencies. There were people on foot and some in the air.
I'm telling you, it's tough on them too, and these guys are in shape. I'd challenge anybody to tell me they're in better shape and that they have all the tools and resources, and it's still tough on them. It kicks their bottom to get out here and do this. We have one rescuer that we're evacuating from the area just because he's got leg cramps and that.
Those resources are expensive. The sheriff said the helicopter alone is $500 an hour. Throughout the week, the question of recovering that cost came up. There's a state law that allows public safety agencies to charge people the cost of the rescue if they've driven into a flooded wash. Would a fine for those who need rescue in the heat serve as a preventative measure?
The stupid motorist law we have is there, and it's never really done anything. I mean, I don't want to fine people to get my resources back. We're obligated to go and keep people safe and rescue them.
Even when we start to see clouds, this desert heat is different from a heat wave in the rest of the country. It's drier and more persistent, as we've seen in the past week. Michelle Manos is with the Pima County Health Department, and she's studying every heat-related illness that happens here, including those that made the news this weekend and those that didn't.
In addition to these hiking and walking incidents that the sheriff told you about, there were at least 2 other people who were found unconscious with heat stroke and were taken by emergency vehicle to an emergency room. And then and that was yesterday, and there were multiple others, including people who had been working in their backyards, who ended up in the emergency room with less severe forms of heat illness, but still severe enough to require treatment in an emergency room. There are different stages of heat illness, as you probably know, and usually heat illness happens starting with something like muscle cramps. That can often be the first sign, and then heat exhaustion includes headache, feeling very, very warm, sometimes affects the heart rate a little bit, nausea, sometimes with vomiting, feeling a little bit confused, feeling very fatigued, and it's your body talking to you saying get out of the situation that you're in. And so in those situations, heat exhaustion is usually not an emergency. It's something that one can take care of by getting out of the heat, cooling down, slowly drinking water or energy drinks, perhaps taking a cool shower, and really getting oneself hydrated.
But if you stay in the heat, your body's systems can reach a point where they can no longer keep you cool enough.
There's a terrible competition between the blood flow going to the skin surface, but as a result, you have less blood going back to the heart. Your blood pressure falls, and if your blood pressure falls enough, your brain function is compromised, and you often lose the ability to thermoregulate at all. So the temperature spikes up to very high levels, and it can actually damage brain tissue, and that's what can kill you.
At the Pima County Health Department, understanding and preventing heat-related illness is a big focus now, particularly as we are facing rising temperatures in Arizona. And so one of the things that we've done over the past several years is to study in depth each incident that has happened that is related to heat. That is, each emergency rescue that the Sheriff Department did, and each emergency department visit, and each death. And we've been looking in detail at each of those cases to understand the who, what, why, where, when of them. So we look at what activity they were engaged in, how old are they, do they have any medical conditions that put them at higher risk. Importantly, something that we figured out is that people who are taking, in particular, psychiatric medicines such as antipsychotic medicines are at higher risk because those medicines make it virtually impossible for the body to regulate its temperature. So we've been finding a lot of information about the risk factors for heat illness, and we're turning those details about the who, what, why, where, when of heat illness in Pima County into some strategic prevention, working with the Sheriff's Department, for example, looking at what trailheads seem to have more of these accidents than others. Identifying the vulnerable populations, such as our elders, such as people taking psychiatric drugs, the homeless, people who are using substances. So we're able to take this detailed information and turn it into prevention that we hope will make these kinds of tragedies less and less frequent. Certainly, we have many opportunities to perhaps get some better signage up, perhaps even creating some seasonal signage in the parks, at trailheads, etc.
We're even thinking of joining up. We do these operations. We're thinking of doing an operation with all the resort hotels in the area and give them some training and maybe give them some literature to hand out. But we've done that before, and here we find ourselves. And the reality is, we've looked at the numbers. Probably 80% of our rescue missions are from people who live here.
Health department statistics from emergency rooms mirror that figure, so county officials are stressing education and personal responsibility.
The issue to me, though, isn't so much signage or parking cars at the trailheads or fining people for being a dumb hiker. It's really just educating our community and our public. And I think people see this and they know it, but yet they still ignore it. And here you have an 18-year-old, a 50-some-year-old male and a 50-some-year-old female. They're gone because of the choices they made.
Some of those choices do prove fatal, but there's also a group of people who choose to go out in the heat or the rain, snow, floods to rescue others. One of them is Bill Kellerman. He's with the Southern Arizona Rescue Association, the group that was here on the Finger Rock Trail Sunday to help evacuate one person and also recover the body of an 18-year-old who died on this trail. Bill, with 3 calls in a couple of hours, what was Sunday like?
It was pretty extreme. We had anticipated with all the broadcasts the day before and the days going up to the extreme temperature day that we would see some business. We would see some hikers in distress, and we just didn't know what time of the day it would come. Several of us were up on top of Mount Lemmon working. We heard the first call go out in Finger Rock Trailhead and started down. Almost to the bottom of the Mount Lemmon Highway, we received information that there was another call that we needed to divert some people towards Seven Falls area. I headed to that one. Sometime shortly after that, another third call went down to Ventana Canyon. So as we were finishing up the Seven Falls Trail,
And those people got out, they walked out themselves?
we walked the 2 ladies out of Seven Falls just fine.
Okay, so then
we
after
hydrated them. We had SAMSAR, which is our mounted horse unit, member of the component group SARCI, come in and help us out with that one as well. Sheriff's Office joined, helped us with that as well, and we hiked them out. And then most of us diverted to Ventana Canyon Trailhead to help with the continuation of that rescue that was going on. And there was still at that time Sheriff's Office helicopter and our initial cadre of people on this call here. So it got a little pretty hectic.
What's going through your mind when you are out on a rescue, let's say the Ventana Canyon call? By the time you got there, what are you thinking?
You know, the time of the year really dictates a lot of that, and some of the radio traffic that we hear, the levels of distress that the subjects are in. In this case, we all knew that it was critical just based on the day temperatures alone, and it was critical to the rescuers. So stuff that goes through our mind is our own personal care, how we can do it safely, and how we can get to the subjects fast. In this case, it was a little bit more challenging because of the heat and the separation that was involved. We also had a little bit of a language barrier that came into play. So it all just, it evolved and it worked out. Obviously, our condolences go out to all the parties that lost somebody that day, and it was Arizona-wide.
What do you do to prepare to be ready when a day like Sunday happens?
Well, just about a month ago, we had, within SARA, we had our own summer survival course where we took candidates and candidates are people who've been accepted already by SARA and in the training process. We take them and we watch them and run them through some training drills. We teach all of the new people coming in to become acclimatized to the weather, understand the extreme conditions, understand your own reactions to it, and educate them. Part of that education is hydration is so important where we're hiking in the desert. It's pretty hostile. There's no doubt about it, especially in the extreme summer months. So hydration doesn't take place just 5 minutes before you hit the trailhead. It definitely doesn't take place about a mile up the trail. We try to educate our people to hydrate all night long. Prepare yourself if you plan on being on a hike or plan on being on rescue.
What is SARA, the Southern Arizona Rescue Association?
Southern Arizona Rescue Association was started in 1958 in the southern part of the Tucson area, the Santa Ritas. And it's a volunteer, professional search and rescue group that Pima County Sheriff calls on to assist them. They have their own sheriff's deputies that we relate to and correspond with. And we offer Pima County a no-charge search and rescue professional level assistance.
Why do you choose to be part of it?
My personal reasons is, I've been asked that question a lot over the years. We all have to give back something somewhere, and it's kind of my way of doing it. I've been blessed. I've gone a lot of places in my life. I love Tucson. I love hiking. And this gives those of us who like those type of things a chance to get out and help others. And it's very rewarding. It's when you can see and you make a difference in somebody's care or somebody's rescue, there's really no greater feeling. It's instant gratification.
How is Sarah funded?
Sarah's funded by donations and some grants and just private citizens.
If someone is going to go hiking, we obviously hope it's not in the extreme heat, but what should they carry with them when they go?
When you're talking extremes like Sunday, you can't carry enough water. For what your body is trying to evaporate and perspire out, you can't possibly carry enough. But the rule of thumb is from 1 gallon to 2 gallons of water a day if you're going to be hiking all day in that kind of a heat. Tough to carry that weight, but you've got to do it. You know, part of that early recognition will give you a chance to use the rest of the things that you're going to carry with you. We recommend carrying a flashlight. We recommend carrying a cell phone. We also recommend turning that cell phone off at the trailhead so that your battery is not always searching and draining down as it's trying to find your cell phone coverage. If you have to use it later on, that's great, turn it back on. If you have to seek a little bit of a higher point to use it, do so, but at least you'll have a pretty fully charged battery, hopefully. Okay? The other thing that corresponds with that is if it turns out to be a night rescue, just the glow or the flashlight from that cell phone battery that you've saved can be enough to alert the helicopter who's looking through night vision goggles to find you. Okay? So flashlight is another thing that we recommend you take with you. A map. Not everybody this day and age uses a compass, but we always recommend a compass as well. Maybe you're not the best skilled at it, but on your cell phone you can help give some kind of a coordinates for some kind of a triangulation or an area that you're looking at to help identify a little further where you are. On our webpage, sarci.org, that's sarci.org. If you go to the safety links on there, there's also some additional items that you might think about taking in your pack before you go.
Bill showed me how much more the Southern Arizona Rescue Association volunteers have with them when they're out on a search.
We tailor our packs either to the call or the rescue we're going on or to the season. And this is just my quick pack that we have right here. I've got a spare hat that I carry with me. I carry my helmet on here and my hiking sticks. I carry a first aid kit, BP cuff, pulse ox, blood stop tourniquet, and then I carry various sets of goggles, either for myself on a rescue or if we have to give it to a victim that's going to be taken out in a helicopter, we'll have a set of goggles on them with a helmet. So we carry a lot of, I carry just some quick food, some quick snacks, carry some splint, extra flashlights, carry about 9 or 10 different maps inside here as well. Carry splints, carry a blanket inside here, just some quick cleanup items, medical gloves, water, Camelback, and then on the top of my pack for quick access, shot blocks or cliff shots, just some quick energy, if you will, if I've got to give it to a subject. In this day and age with the bees that are out here right now, a lot of the EMTs carry epi, or if you have a particular allergic reaction, you carry your own. Just an immediate form of treatment, a medical book to be able to take care of all of our notes, and then just some quick items, just a quick Band-Aid, quick aspirin, just to have handy with you if you need it personally yourself.
And how much does this pack weigh?
When it's fully loaded, it's about 55 to 60 pounds.
But you also have other stuff you can bring if necessary,
Yes,
depending
ma'am.
on the situation.
And actually, most of us have several packs. So we'll keep our packs just staged in the vehicles, or we'll keep our stuff staged. I've got a whole set of technical gear as well that I keep. So if I'm going on a helicopter to rappel out a DPS helicopter, or I'm going to go on a particular rescue, we will tailor it to that. We also have team gear that we'll be using that's brought in. But everything else here that we use is personal. So you carry a lot and you invest a lot in it.
Coming up later here on PBS 6, a mother, wife, cancer patient, and a fighter. Last month, we introduced you to Jacqueline La Madrid. On the next Arizona Week, we check in with Jackie, her husband, and her son as they face the next chapter of the fight of her life. Coming up later on Arizona Week here on PBS 6. going to continue to talk about the dangerous, sad, and remarkable weekend with these journalists who covered the story. Here with me today, Astrid Galvan of the Associated Press, Paul Ingram of the Tucson Sentinel, and my colleague Nancy Montoya. Now, Paul, we reported earlier that a lot of the people who were rescued this weekend were actually from out of town, but as the sheriff and the health department said, that's the opposite of what it normally is. Normally, it's 80% of the people who need rescues or go to the emergency department are Tucsonans. Why don't we know better?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I mean, it's really easy to become overconfident about your ability to deal with heat. If you had gone out on one of these hikes 2 weeks ago, the temperature was 90 in the 90s. It was a 20, almost 30-degree difference in some cases. So you could have done those hikes and been just fine and felt like you could do it again. It's also really easy for people to get in trouble because they're just out working in their yards, or they're taking new medications that they weren't used to. So there's lots of different ways that it can kind of sneak up on you and get you. And I think Tucsonans kind of pride themselves a little bit on being able to kind of be in the heat. I mean, this is sort of our winter season. Some friend of mine said, this is when the professional Tucsonans are here. This is
That's a great way to put it.
So, we kind of know. I think everyone has their strategies, but sometimes it's easy to get out of your strategy and not wear a hat, not have enough water, or maybe work a little longer than you thought you were going to, or be on a hike that's too long.
It's even exemplified in the coverage we did earlier in the show. The sheriff held a press conference outside. 3 of us were there. And Paul, your shoes even got, the asphalt melted into your shoes. It was so hot that day.
Yes.
While they were looking for a hiker.
Exactly.
So, I mean, even the sheriff who says don't go outside is holding this outside.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, it didn't even occur to me. I was wearing a hat. I always have a hat because I like keeping the sun off the top of my head. And I was wearing sunglasses and a good shirt, but apparently the crepe soles on my shoes are not hot, not heat proof. So yeah, the asphalt kind of burned straight up into it. And I noticed that my feet were getting really hot, but I didn't quite know why until I went to a coffee shop and looked and went, oh, what happened here?
Yeah, so that's a little bit of that,
so,
we know, but we don't really think about it maybe.
I think it's easy, and I think it's really easy to sneak up on you.
Yeah. And Astrid, you co-reported a story this week with a colleague from out of state, and one of the things you guys both wrote about was the number of air conditioning units, and you found that in Arizona we pretty much have air conditioning. So the issue here is more of an outside heat issue rather than people being stuck inside without cooling.
You look at places like Seattle where the highs might be only in the 90s, which is totally normal for us or cool for us, but over there it's very uncommon and people don't have ACs, and so it's different. It's a different dynamic. And
you also wrote, maybe not this week, but in the last couple weeks, about another sort of summer issue that we have here that's weather related, and that's dust storms, which speaks to how hot and dry it is here. What's the latest with that?
Yeah, so the drier, we had a really dry winter, and so we didn't have a lot of growth crops-wise and plants and whatnot. And so in particular in southern Arizona, we had a farm that had been seeded, but not, get readied for planting, but not seeded on. And so there was just, anytime there was any sort of wind, 10, 15, 20 miles per hour, which isn't that intense, it would just pick up tons of dust and send it through the air, send it through I-10. And that's more common in the spring when the winds are a little bit more intense, but it has to do with the drought and being dry and not having anything to keep the dust settled.
Okay. And then Nancy, as I said, the 3 of us covered this story, the missing hiker, the bodies recovered this weekend, but you've been working on a story about rescues in the desert that Border Patrol is doing. Tell us about the special rescue unit.
Border Patrol has a special unit called BORSTAR, which is a search, trauma, and rescue unit. I spent time in Yuma County, where it was really hot. I mean, you guys thought it was hot here. It was really hot.
Always hotter in Yuma, right?
In Yuma, right. And this is a special team of 10 Border Patrol agents who are specially trained to go out in the desert and rescue migrants primarily. What happened this last week, there were 4 migrants who were found dead. They did 12 rescues. Many of the migrants set out before the heat wave started, and they found themselves trapped in the middle of the desert when it got really hot. And in order to traverse the desert in the Yuma area, it's 30 to 60 miles of heavy-duty walking with really no shade anywhere. And it's rare that you can even carry the water that you need to make it through that trek.
And Paul, do they only rescue migrants?
I mean, BORSTAR will rescue anyone that they need to. Anyone who puts out a 911 call, who's been shown to be missing in some way can be rescued by BoRSTAR. It's important to remember, I mean, BoRSTAR was originally created to rescue Border Patrol agents.
Right.
It was really to knowing that agents who might be in the middle of Texas or in Arizona, who might be out in the desert by themselves, get into trouble, BoRSTAR was really trained to go get them. But over time, the agency has shifted towards doing migrant rescues. BoRSTAR will also do rescues, with anyone who needs it. For instance, in Cochise County, Border Patrol was actually part of a group that went looking for a 15-year-old kid who got lost in the Mule Mountains, and Border Patrol and sheriff's deputies were the ones who found him.
And remember, in 2001, when they had the Devil's Highway incident, where 24 migrants set out, 14 were found dead. After that incident, Border Patrol put up something called the rescue beacons, or many call them the panic towers. And these, in Yuma County at least, there's 24 of them. They're solar-powered towers that sit up high, and you find yourself in trouble, you push a button, and the beacon sends a notification to the nearest Border Patrol station. It's a catch-22. If they show up, they will rescue you, but they also will arrest you. So you're alive. So those are decisions, but they're finding that the beacons are being used almost every day out there.
Astrid, you also wrote about the fact that ranchers are now using law enforcement radios, ranchers along the border. Is that related to some of this heat-related issues, or the distance that people have to travel through ranches, maybe?
It's mostly related to the distance, how far they are, and because they're in very rural and remote areas, there's not strong cell phone signal. So a lot of the times these ranchers will be out doing their work, and they'll be in the middle of nowhere with not a lot of cell phone signal, and now they have very easy access to directly radio in 911.
And is that all law enforcement, just Border Patrol, just county sheriffs?
It's a program from the Cochise County Sheriff's Office, and it's specifically for ranchers within Cochise County.
There also, though, there was 100 of these cell phones purchased at about $800 per cell phone. They're also giving them out to some of the schools in the area, some of the hospitals in the area. Again, communication in Cochise County is a real challenge sometimes.
It's so rural,
right, they got a grant from a foundation, and they're expecting to spend around $150,000 on this program. The neat thing is that eventually everything will link together, so that not only the Cochise County Sheriff's Department, but other law enforcement in the area will have access to these cell phones.
All right.
Or radios.
Radios, yeah. Moving away from the rescue elements that we were covering all week, you wrote about some of the prevention efforts that are happening throughout the state. Let's start with sort of what the national parks and the remote areas are doing to inform people. As the sheriff said, education is everything.
Yeah, so I talked to somebody at Death Valley National Monument or Park, and they sent me this picture. It's kind of funny but sad. I mean, it's a giant red sign that says extreme heat, like don't go, and they're carrying out a hiker that needed to be rescued. At White Sands National Monument in New Mexico, last year a French couple died when they were hiking with their son. And so they had already been working on these signs, but they're, probably more important now, these new signs that are more graphics-based. They're easier to kind of understand if you don't speak English. They're also in Spanish. And so the new signage is just one of the small things that they're doing to try to let people know, hey, this is dangerous, don't do this, or be prepared with this.
And that touches on the issue that we heard about, the language issue with the Germans in Tucson last week, the French people in New Mexico. Right. And so what are the resorts and hotels doing? You looked into that too.
Yeah, I did. So there are resorts already, like I spoke with Star Pass, and their concierge always let people know, hey, don't hike, anytime after the early morning. They do guided hikes, so they try to prevent people from going out on their own as much as they can. But also up in Phoenix, they have the city of Phoenix, which has 41 trailheads, huge area for hiking. That they've partnered with the Phoenician and other resorts and hotels on trying to educate staff so that when a person comes up to them and asks them what to do, they know what to say, and they're giving out brochures that have hiking safety and let them know that there are a lot of dangers.
And are they partnering with law enforcement on those, or are those just initiatives that those agencies are doing on their own, those hotels?
That particular initiative is just the city with hotels. But I know locally, the Pima County Sheriff mentioned, he wanted to talk to local hotels.
All right, well, there's an example they can take. Thanks to all of you for being here. That's it for this week. For more on the Southern Arizona Rescue Association, including the story of the 1958 tragedy that inspired its creation, watch Arizona Illustrated this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Thanks for watching. Be careful in the heat, and we'll see you next week.